So here we see women in the cornfield. They're harvesting, but they're also cooking to feed themselves. Think of it this way. Harvesting was a bigger thing than we can imagine. It would be like a satellite cap. You'd go out there, and you'd be out there for weeks, because the other challenge with harvest, if you don't get all of that corn out of the field and into a dry, safe place, it'll get moldy in the field. So there's always a challenge between when the corn ripens, and usually you notice, because then the corn will fall down, says, I'm ready, come and pick me, and you got to go pick it, you got to braid it, you got to dry it, all before the wet weather sinks in. So harvesting is a big activity. To me, it's one of the greatest family activities you can do, because it's a great adventure for the kids. Yeah, it's a lot of hard labor, but instead of running their mouth, have them work their hands. But remember the physicality of it all. It actually is great exercise. It's a lot of work, but you got to get ready. It's tough on your hands, tough on your back. It's a typical pack basket. I was going to bring one maybe the next time. You fill it up with corn, and you're doing your exercise, They also used to have what they call a burden strap. This here is made out of basswood fibers, and it's long. That thing is probably 12 feet long. And the women would carry these bundles on the back, wrap these cords around them, and that wide part, it goes over your forehead. So one woman could carry a big load. But it wasn't just the women doing it, but they certainly were the primary workers in the cornfield. If anybody's husked corn by hand, it's a lot of fun, but after you do about 10 of them, you say, okay, what's next? Imagine having to do 5,000 of them. So our people invented these pins made out of bone or an antler, a husking pin. So you imagine your hand fits in here, or this little loop around your hand, and with that pin, you're able to do this. Pull that corn back. First of all, it'll save your fingernails, save your hands, but then you're really working that. So even making these husking pins, that's a lot of fun, because we've got to figure out how to do all of this. But that's a labor-saving device that our ancestors had that was really well. Braiding corn is almost becoming a lost art. To braid the corn, in order for it to dry, there's a certain technique to be able to braid it tightly. This was braided by my 11-year-old daughter as best she could do, but at least she was trying to do it. So, and since I'm not really expert at it, I just said, well, you have to learn how to do it, so you figure it out. And she did. I showed her one. We had an old braid at the house. But look at this. Look how long that braid is. If you've ever picked up a braid of corn, usually about 6 feet long, that's a load, right? That's a big load. They used to haul them all the way up to the top of the longhouse so that they're up in the rafters there and drying, and then as you need them, you use that. A corn on a braid can last, I've seen some in the museum that are 90 years old. Now, the older the corn gets on the braid, the darker it gets, just gets old, just like us. But they say generally, you can keep seed 3 or 4 years and still plant it to get a good crop out of it. So by taking the corn, as you pick the corn, pull it back, you got to strip off a few. Some only leave 3 leaves on there, or 3 husks. Braid it together tightly to be able to hang it. That in itself is also great. So this woman here is shelling the corn, as you can see there, in her lap. The ears, but man, you want a few blisters? That's the way to do it. So our ancestors, even instead of using it by hand, now it's true you can take it, you can twist it, you can make it start, but they used the jawbone of a deer. They cut down the end, smoothed it out, and then they just use that jawbone to scrape the corn off the cob once it's dry. And I've tried that. It's not always easy, but what I'm getting at is this is also indigenous knowledge. It's not always the great big huge stuff. It's that practical thinking, because you're there in a corn production. You gotta do that work. It's a lot of work. So they'll find these deer jaws. Here, see where it's been cut off, rounded off. So try that. Rather than throwing a deer head away, let's make some use of it.